Welcome everybody to this episode of the ISME Conversations. I'm Letitia Wilkins and I'm the current chair of the ISME Early Career Scientist Committee. And today I have a guest, and that is Professor Raquel Peixoto at KAUST University in Saudi Arabia.
Hi, Letitia. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be here recording this interview with you for our early career members and the entire community, of course.
Yes, we're really happy to have you and to learn a little bit from your experiences. So I understood that you are actually originally from Brazil, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your curriculum, like where you are now and how you got there.
Of course, yeah, it's going to be a pleasure. So I'm originally from Brazil and I started my career there, although I did part of my PhD in Germany. So I've got to have this international experience during my PhD. And later, I also spent some years in California as a visiting professor, where I've got the offer to come to KAUST and enjoy the Red Sea Research Center. And then this is how I ended up here after walking around a little bit across the globe.
Exactly.
And I'm a microbiologist. I'm actually a biologist, and I did my PhD and my master in microbiology, and started working on plant and soil microbiology to migrate into the marine environment before passing through mangroves, but always around the study of beneficial microbes that can promote different host health.
And now you're mostly working on corals, right?
Now I'm mostly working on corals. Yeah, marine organisms, but really focused on coral microbiology and manipulation of beneficial microbes.
Yeah, because I remember when we met the first time in California, when you were a visiting researcher in Jonathan Eisen's lab. I was a postdoc there. I think you were still working mostly on mangroves, right?
I was mostly working on corals at that time already, but I still had some projects and some things that I was wrapping up on mangroves. And I think in the end of the day, I've been using all these hosts as models, because the main research and the main mechanisms and the way we do the research are very similar. And actually it has been an inspiration to the next project, because I started working on plants and the biological control of pathogens and how microbial ecology can be used to understand the health status of these organisms and this biotic process, and then how the symbiotic relationships could be restored. And this is more or less what I tried to do when I started working on corals, because it was like a translation of this type of technology into this new model. But it's pretty much inspired in the work that I used to do as a master and PhD student.
Exactly. So I'm personally very curious to hear from you how you managed to do all of these transitions with your family, because I know you came from Brazil and then you went to California and then you went to Saudi Arabia, and I know that your partner is also active in academia and you have kids at different ages. And can you give us some tips how to deal with family when you do these big moves into unknown countries?
Of course, this is of course a challenge, right? And it's a challenge for all of us. So first of all, it's not easy, and it's okay to know that it's going to be challenging, that it's going to be tough at some points and some moments. I think a key tip that I can share is that we always keep a very open communication about all the decisions we make. So usually make the decisions as a family. So we communicate with our kids. They know what we do. We talk a lot about also what we do, the impacts that this can have in science, and they get very engaged. And this is one good thing, because eventually, my little one says, "Oh, okay, it's gonna be good for the corals, so let's go." And so it's even conferences and things like that. And you know, Felipe, and how passionate about the environment and animals he can be. But then I think the first thing is open communication, and also to be prepared for these challenges and for tough moments, and just face it. It's not going to be always perfect and always, nice, and they won't adapt immediately. So it's gonna take some time for all of us to adapt, right? Because we first, as you said, we went from Brazil to the US, and when they were all set and adapted and set up, we moved again to Saudi Arabia. But because we kept this open channel of communication with them, and because they know that it's going to be tough for a while, but they will adapt, and that these will bring some skills also, because these adaptive ability is also going to be good for them in the future. And I think this is what I can say that I remember, like from the top of my head, as one of the most important things throughout the process, right? And it's about that. It's about saying, look, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy for any of us, but the advantages are these and these and this and that. And this is going to be something that will make you learn, will make you grow, and it will also bring good things. But also accept that we're going to fail sometimes. It's going to be difficult. And in the end of the day, it's about doing it together as a family and making the decisions as a family. Yeah, and accepting that sometimes you do this, and the first 2 months, 3 months won't be easy, and you will have to, come up with solutions and change your kid from one school to the other and adapt. And at some point, they will just find a way and see that in our case, specifically in our case, it has been always very positive. So even though it's not immediate or quick, the transition, once it's established, it's been always positive, and they've been learning a lot as people, as human beings.
Yeah. So some people told me as advice that when kids reach a specific age, you should not move anymore. And I'm wondering, because you have kids at different ages, do you agree to this, or do you think that even the older ones are still adaptable?
I know. I think even the older ones can still adapt. I think it depends a lot. Of course, you have to respect, specific traits of your kids' personalities. And then if you think and if you feel as a parent that this is going to affect them too much, of course, this is a personal, decision. But from my experience, even when, for example, we moved from the US to Saudi Arabia and my daughter was already in high school, we talked to her first, like pros and cons, and this is what you may learn there, and this is like the advantage. She made the decision with us, and I think the fact that she was part of the decision, she was actually taking part of it, made her feel confident enough to come and be open, to accept the change and to accept a new place. And she's extremely happy now. It was very scary for her at first, but she has found like a universe of benefits for being here, and she's been learning a lot. And she told me the other day that, I'm so thankful that we made this decision and we came here. But it wasn't that simple from the beginning. I think that empowering her in the way that it was part of the decision, she actually had a saying, and participated in all of the steps, made a huge difference. So in my opinion, there's no rule. I don't think there is a rule for that. It depends a lot on your children and the personality and several other things around it, the way you handle it. And I don't think that there is a recipe for most of the things in life, but there are things that we can learn from other people's experiences, right? Yeah, and we can just incorporate it if it's useful.
So you're saying that even if you had several offers at the same time at different places in the world, you would still discuss it with the kids?
Of course, you will filter, right? You will filter the things that are reasonable and make sense for you as a professional, right? Then you once you have this filter, I think you can let them be part of it, even if you have already, if you have a preference and you know more or less what you're going to do. But I think it's important for them to to be part of this creative process, to be part of why do I think that this is better for me and my family? Because when we make this decision, we automatically think of our family, right? If we have a family. So I think it's going to be like part of the process anyways in our heads, right? That we will take this into account. So if we just vocalize it, if we just take them on board and make them see why we got there and why we think that this is going to be productive for all of us, they will kind of team up and be part of the decision. So it's going to make it, I think, easier. And this is what happened to us. So
yeah, thanks for sharing.
of course, yeah, I know it's hard, so I'm happy to share my experience. And of course, there are lots of things that we can learn from other people, and we also took some advice from other colleagues who had mentored the same process and incorporated some of these things from them. And I think it's important to pass it on and have other families that can benefit from these previous experience that we had.
So some of our early career researchers maybe don't fully understand how it works with dual careers. Like, for example, I don't know how, when you know that you want to move and maybe take the next step, and both of you are actually academics, does it usually work so that you both apply at the same time and then you just hope that one of you gets a job and tries to negotiate that the other one can also come in? Or do you already, when you apply, make it open that your partner is also available, or how does that work?
I've asked this question to some colleagues when I decided to apply for other positions when I was in California, and I've got all sorts of different opinions and suggestions. And from my perspective, I think you apply independently, like you apply for the position you want. And once you learn that your profile is a profile that university or that place or that research center would be interested in, and then you have your interview, I think it's probably best moment. Once you see that they are interested and they would be a potential place where you would like to go, I think then it's the right moment. Because if you it's my opinion, right, that if they don't know you and they don't know how and whether they would want your profile there, I don't think it's productive to already share that you have a partner and completely different position, different profile. So I think you first make sure that you make your application and that place is interested in you, and then I think it's the moment to bring your partner in. If there are positions that are already open with both profiles, then you do it immediately but independently. You apply for your position and he applies or she applies for her position, and then you go from there. And this is like, I don't think there is a recipe for that, but I think this is probably the most productive strategy. Otherwise, you don't create the opportunity for that committee to know you, because you already, bring something that can be a complication for when they are selecting the best candidate. So please, maybe let them know you first and know that you could be a good addition, and then you bring this in. I think it makes it more straightforward, right? I may be wrong. I really don't have, I don't think I have like the ultimate response for this, question, but I think this sounds more, reasonable.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and also, of course, you can try always, but it's very difficult. You can always try to find places where the two of you would have good, positions that are open that could be a good fit, but it doesn't happen that way, right? It's also important to keep in mind that eventually not all the positions that place, that maybe they don't have any open positions at that moment for your partner, but they would be interested in someone like him or her if they hear from their achievements and things that they are not even public. So yeah, just keep it open, I think.
Yeah. I was also wondering, when you were a postdoc, when did you know that it was like time to move on and become a group leader? Is that something that happened to you, like at some point you got more confident, you had maybe an experience or something, or how did you know it was time to move on?
I think it's a natural, I mean, at least for me, it was a natural outcome. I think it's exactly as you said. You start building your career and your research, and at some point you feel confident and you have your own ideas and all the things that you want to try, and start sometimes in a very different direction from what your supervisor is going to. And so this, I think it's the moment when you start to build a path for you to find this position and to be able to develop the ideas and things that you have been brewing. So I think it's a momentum. You start to, at the same time, to build your CV, to work on your papers and achievements and involvement with other things, with societies, with research groups in your network. And then at some point, you just feel like that you have these things. And eventually if you are insecure, because we are all always, it's a common thing to feel insecure. If you feel like, I have all these ideas and I think I'm ready, but I don't know exactly, if I can do it by myself. This is okay also, because until you have the means, right? Until you have the position and therefore the students and the grants, you won't be able to do that, right? So you'll be always, so you don't need to be, at that point of confidence that you already have the tools. But if you feel that you have the main drivers, that you have a solid, background, that you have the ideas that you want to develop that go in a different direction from where you are, I think it's time for you to strongly consider, finding the means, because then you will have your group and then you have the structure you need to develop it. And you, of course, can always have this type of support from your supervisor, right? This type of brainstorm and feedback can also come from supportive supervisors, right? And this is what I really expect to my postdocs and to students that work with me, that I can be the person that they would come to and discuss these things, and I could somehow help with my own experiences and provide feedback on where they could develop and go to be at that point.
Yeah. Sometimes it's difficult for me because I feel like I have some mentors that are helping me and that are also offering me opportunities. And then I feel almost bad because I don't want to invade their territory. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder how I can feel better about this.
Can I go?
Yes.
So, yeah. I think that I will go back a little bit. I will go backwards to what I said about finding your topic, about rather than being all over the place, finding your focusing. I mean, you have to focus.
Yeah,
right?
basically, I really liked your advice when you're early in your career, that you shouldn't be all over the place, but that you should actually focus more and find out where you want to bring your group to. And I said, for me, this is pretty hard. I feel like I'm a little bit all over the place right now.
Exactly, but it's normal. And I think it's important. Maybe it was important for me to be all over the place for a period of time, and then I think that there is a tipping point where you have to transition from being all over the place and finding your spot. And I think it's fine if you are still working within the same topic as your supervisors, but you have to find the very, very specific part of it, that it's your topic, that is the place where you make most of your contributions, that you make a difference, that you will bring some expertise that it only belongs to you, like that you can combine all the things you learned throughout your career and bring something new within that universe that is already being developed by other people, but where you can contribute with something new, specific, that it's going to be your thing. And I think that finding this thing is a very important thing in your career, because it's where you're going to be recognized and respected. And in my case, it was like bringing the knowledge, because I was already working on the coral field and I was developing bioremediation projects, oil bioremediation project. But that's when I thought about the work that I had developed in mangroves that was about bioremediation also, but using plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, and also the plant science from my PhD working on biological control. And then I started to think, wow, maybe it's not about degrading the oil, is about making the host stronger, and for that I used all the knowledge I had from my PhD, my postdoc in different areas, into something that was very new and specific for the coral community. And this is how and where I felt that was doing something new, that was my specific path, that I could actually contribute and create something new. And of course, all the people working on that too, now, for example, probiotics, coral probiotics, they are developing their own different ways to do that. And this is like still the same topic, but with your personality, right? And your background and your experience and the new knowledge that will be generated within that topic. But that will be your contribution. So it's not about the topic, and I don't think your supervisors will feel bad about having you developing your research within the main topic. But you find a way to do this and contribute and add to what they are doing without doing the same thing, finding your thing based on what you learned from them, plus your personality and your background, and create something new.
I feel this is really great advice, Raquel.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that I can contribute with that, because it made a huge difference for me.
Did you ever consider pursuing a non-academic career?
No. And I always wanted to be, even before I was like even a student in college, I knew I wanted to be a biologist since I was 6. So I think, and I always wanted to do research. So I know that it's not like that for everyone. I've met people from very different, profiles and backgrounds and aspirations. And I think it's okay also to feel, insecure about which way to go at some moment, because of course, especially depending on the type of research you do, you have lots of different options, right? And different paths that you can take. So I think it's fine also to be confused. It didn't happen to me because I think it was something I really knew and I really wanted. But I've seen different and talented students that actually don't really know. And eventually they go to the industry and they come back, right? After some point. It happens, or eventually they go and they find their place and they develop it. So sometimes you just have to be open for the opportunities, and sometimes it's okay to try some things out and just realize it's not what you wanted, or find your place, right? So I think this is one thing that I sometimes tell my students when they are not 100% sure and some good opportunity shows up, that is also fine to go and try. And if it doesn't work it doesn't work out as they expected, they can always come back, right? It's just a matter of trying to do this in a way that you still have your open doors and places where you can re-establish later.
Yeah.
But I be an academic.
I remember as a PhD student, we were told that we have to choose, that you can't jump from academia out into industry and then come back. But maybe this is actually not even fully true if you say that people who actually managed to go and come back.
Yeah, I know. Even established researchers that have at some point done this transition, right? Of course, it's easier if you know your path and you know what you want to keep the track, and of course you will be in the loop, you will be updated, you will be publishing, and so it's easier. But it's not, if I have, if I can choose, if I know it, of course, this is the easiest path. But if you are really confused about it, and you have an opportunity and you are attracted to that opportunity, some people sometimes don't take it because they are so scared of losing what they know, right? They are scared of losing what they know, not necessarily what they want. So in these cases, I think it's fine, right? And I don't see other way to go from there, because you may be missing a very good opportunity that would be, productive for you, and maybe what you actually want. Because if you are not 100% sure, right, it means that there's still room for you to develop this idea, a little bit further. So eventually it's fine. I don't see, it's of course easier if you can just take the path and go all the way, but it doesn't happen this way. It doesn't go that way to everyone, right? Sometimes you have to just try this out, and make sure that you do this in a way that you don't go too far, and so you can still come back, but at the same point you try the opportunities to see exactly what you want to do, and take the best out of it, right? Because I really believe that people are way more productive if they are happy, right? So
yeah, I just feel like it has become a little bit harder to actually find a permanent job in academia, and that's why we should be realistic. And I think that many of our students might actually not end up in academia, and I wonder how I could prepare and to be a good mentor also to people who actually don't like, who consider not to stay in academia, and still they might do some really good academic work during their PhD, but then they decide to move somewhere else, and I just wonder how I can learn to be a good mentor to these people as well.
Yeah, I think I've seen that too. Like people who are very good doing the development of their thesis, and they're very good in academia, but they find themselves, to be very good leaders and partners in other different institutions. So I think you cannot, as a mentor, you can't make this like decision, guiding this person this way or that way. But I think it's a natural thing that you feel in some of these people when they take different, roles, or they have different behavior, that you can see the potential and you can just introduce the options, right? Because as a mentor, you cannot make this decision for them, but you can present the opportunities, right? You can connect them with people from the industry where the positions are, for example, and allow them to experience this, maybe through a collaboration, maybe through an internship or something that can provide them with the opportunity to try these other options out as well. So I think that this is the best way. The only thing that you can do as a mentor, to present the opportunities, to present the other options, and maybe create opportunities for your students to be connected with these people and learn more about what they do. Because in most of the cases, we don't know what they do, right? We don't know what these people working in the industry, what do they do exactly in the daily basis, right? So eventually, if they have the opportunity to do an internship, and if you support this type of interactions, then you can create more opportunities for your students. We've been doing this a lot here in our center, because we have lots of interactions with some initiatives in the country, and companies actually that work very close to our center. So we have research being developed in these areas where the companies are being established, and this has been creating a lot of opportunities. So lots of people from former students from our center are now people working in some of these companies, because they had the opportunity to go develop their research in these sites, and get in touch with the people working there. So not only they created the opportunities with the network that they created for themselves, but also with the opportunity to see what they do, and to maybe think, oh, this is something I would like to do as well. So
yeah, I like that. So maybe people have to decide early when they, for example, choose the places where they want to do their PhD. They can also keep in mind, if it's a place that, for example, has a lot of startup companies or something, that it's more likely that they could do an internship or have a collaboration with industry.
Yeah, we could even think that this in some universities is already a reality, that people try to bring these things very close, like very closely integrated somehow, right? The researchers and the startups and all the sponsors and collaborators in a way that you naturally create this type of opportunities for your students. I think it's a good thing, as a program or as a university, to have this type of, interactions so that people were exposed to other options.
Mm-hmm. So when you transitioned from being a postdoc to being a group leader, did you get some sort of like startup money, or how did it work in your case?
It didn't work that way in Brazil because I started as a researcher there and I didn't have any startup, nothing actually. I was lucky enough to work closely with other colleagues like Alexandre, and then I've met and Lucy Sildin as well, and I managed to have access to their infrastructure. And so some senior researchers who actually were very kind, Professor Leda as well, many people, and they were very kind at the time that I could use some of their resources, their infrastructure, collaborate with them, and then slowly create my own group and apply for my grants and get my, and also they also interact, they've created lots of ways for me to get some sponsors, using their own projects, collaborating as co-PI, and then at some point becoming PIs of these projects as well. So no, I didn't have this, and it can be extremely useful, of course. Now it helps you to create your group and to create your line of research, using your time to do the research and to recruit your students and to assemble your group. But if you don't have it, if it's not an option for you, I think one solution is to rely on these colleagues that are kind enough to interact in a way that they can also support early careers to develop their group from scratch, right? It's very generous of these people, but it can be also very productive because the early careers can bring the energy and the ideas that can also, trigger some new developments and some new things for their group as well to explore. I think it's a symbiotic relationship.
Yes. So what you're saying basically is that early career researchers should be aware of the advantages that they actually also bring to the more advanced researchers.
Yes, of course. I think it's definitely a symbiotic relationship, because I mean, and during some point of my career, I was the early career bringing this energy, and now I have also some early career people bringing this energy also back to my group, and I can see this from the two perspectives, and I think in both cases I benefited a lot. So I think it's very important to have the support from these senior people that are already established, that know better where and how to go from there, and also use, of course, their physical infrastructure and the resources. But it's also good for the senior researchers to have these new ideas, this new energy integrated into the group. It's good for everyone, I think.
Mm-hmm. So in your research, you're doing a lot of lab work and a lot of field work. And I was wondering, do you have some kind of favorite gadget that you use for your work?
Some favorite gadget that I use for my work? What do you mean? I mean,
or like favorite instrument in your lab, or favorite, I don't know, maybe you have like an underwater drone or something that you just,
I have like, maybe, well, I like the way we are now building an irrigation system for our probiotics to be applied. So I think because we are developing it right now, I think right now this is my favorite gadget, because it's going to save a lot of work, because we built this city, this underwater city, where we have the corals and the streets, and we've been inoculating probiotics to try this, to make this transition, right? It's a pilot experiment to make the transition of the data we have from the lab into the real world. And we have to go there and dive every week, twice, 3 times a week, and inoculate it ourselves. And now we are developing an irrigation system that can do that for us. So from one side, we want to keep going and diving to see how the corals will respond. But the fact that we can regulate it in a way that if it rains, if we have to travel for Christmas or whatever, it's gonna get going, the research. I think this is my favorite gadget right now, because it's the new toy, right, that is going to allow us to move further, because now we are limited to the months and to the days that we can go to the field. And although we have here a very, very good setup where we can basically go anytime we want, of course, there are always moments that this is going to be more difficult, right? And so this is my new, it's the irrigation system that we've been developing in collaboration, actually led by an engineer from our university, Professor Khaled Salama. And he sent me some of the prototypes very recently. And I think this is, if I have to choose right now, my favorite gadget, but it changes, right? Because we develop things and we are involved in different things from time to time. And for now and right now, it's the irrigation system.
I'm looking forward to see some videos or something that I can see how it works.
If I can, I mean, my favorite achievement so far since I arrived at CAUS, like my favorite thing, because I don't know if I can call it a gadget, is the Coral Probiotic City, is the village, is this city that we established, because it's been a dream for us to test our research in the real world. So once we came here and we spent like 3 months looking for the perfect place to establish, and there were lots of environmental traits that were necessary for this area. You know, it was so hard to find because we needed specific species to be there. We need specific, formation of these reefs, and the area had to be isolated, the depth, everything. And once we found it, it was like a magical moment when we entered this area, and we all thought, it's here. And so since then, I have a very, very close connection with this specific piece of reef. And then after that, we tagged all the colonies. So we basically know the colonies, where they are and how they develop. And so if I could choose like the Coral Probiotics Village as a gadget, I would definitely choose it. And I think this is going to be my permanent gadget forever. Yeah. But if it has to be like one thing and not an area, it's the irrigation system.
Oh, this sounds amazing.
Yeah. And this is also an interesting thing, I think, for early careers, because I had to start everything from scratch, like my lab and everything. I had already established my group and my laboratory and everything. And at this point of my career, I had to start all over again. And so it was like different from the beginning, because of course, when I studied it for the first time, I was still studying everything. I was starting to learn how to get grants, how I didn't have any startup money as I had now. So it was a completely different situation. So I can maybe make a comparison and share my thoughts about doing it for the first time and doing it again. And I think it was at the same time challenging and exciting, because I got to rethink lots of things and do it again. So because sometimes people ask, what would you have done differently if you start again? And I had to start again, right? So I think one of the things that I did is that I was way more focused, on the things that were actually important, the things that I really wanted to achieve. And I've got my energy focused on the specific topics that I wanted to develop, rather than being all over the place as I was for the first time.
Thanks.
I think you learn to be like,
yes,
and spend your energy, and save your energy for the things that you really see as key for the establishment of your group and your career. And of course, that you can also contribute to other people. And it's like a matter of feeling the specific topics and things that you want to develop.
So, and what do you do when you want to unwind, like away from work?
This is a very, very tricky question because we were talking about this the other day. Because eventually we go diving a lot during the week for work. And my family and I are also always going to go diving for weekends and pleasure. So it's funny because I do this. I go to the ocean and I do this. I surf and now I'm diving a lot. So I go away from work going to the same environment where I do my work, which is funny, right? But it's where I go away from work also at the same time. And I clean up my mind and I think about other aspects of the marine environment.
Yeah. So you go to the ocean.
I go to the ocean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. For vacation, for weekends, and for everything. I think. And family. I mean, it's ocean and family because we do a lot of things like we spend most of all the time. I'd say that we have free time together doing things like that we like as a family. So I think it's family and ocean.
Is there anything that you do just for yourself, not as a mom, not as a researcher, just for Raquel?
I do. I like reading. I mean, like in a very comfortable environment that I'm alone and I can be, away from the world and focused on that thing that I'm doing at that moment. Or even like, going also go surfing or diving or doing things by myself when they are not together. Ocean again. And I think that these things bring me pleasure also and help me. And I think it's important to be Raquel as well, not only mother or researcher. And I think these are the moments where I travel, through these books or to this reading or videos that I watch and movies as well, that we do sometimes as a family or not, that open these windows for us, for me to get away from everything else. And I think it's a moment that we can recharge our batteries as well as a person.
Yeah.
Friends, hang out with friends and talk about other things than work and family, whatever. Family too, but also to be with your friends and like catching up with old friends that you don't see for a very long time and things like that bring me a lot of joy as well.
Cool. Thank you very much. I think this is a good point to end our interview, and I just wanted to thank you one more time.
Of course.
Talking to us and giving us a little bit of insight into your life and maybe taking away a little bit of the worries that we sometimes have.
Of course, yeah. I think I just wanted to close this to say that we all have the same, more or less same concerns and we all feel insecure and we all feel super confident at some points and disappointed as well that not everybody will see the achievements and the things that we could bring in. But I think being persistent is one of the key secret, that sometimes you will feel horrible and you give up, but then the next day you wake up and you try again, after you wash your hair and you think about it again, you just bring your energy back and keep going because life is made of cycles and ups and downs and it's part of everyone's life. So if you are frustrated right now, think that maybe tomorrow you won't be and you won't even remember of these small detour, and it happens to everyone. This is important to keep in mind as well.
Just embrace it.
Yeah, just embrace it, feel it, learn from it, and you have to also feel it and suffer. It's okay to do that, and then just go back to the point where you were and try again.
Thank you.
Of course.